I've spent the last 3 months watching a business slowly crumble, knowing my hands were the ones that pushed the first domino. There's this hollow victory in my chest that I can't quite reconcile. Satisfaction mixed with a strange grief for what I've done. I never thought I'd be capable of methodically dismantling someone's livelihood, yet here I am, refreshing my screen daily to watch her desperate discount offers grow steeper. Sometimes, I wonder if I'd become the villain in someone else's story. Planning my best friend's surprise party consumed my life for weeks. Every detail mattered. The guest list, the theme, the memories we'd create. After 15 years of friendship, I wanted to give her the celebration she deserved after finally completing her PhD. The venue was the final piece of the puzzle that refused to fall into place. That's when I found it. This charming converted industrial space with exposed brick walls, string lights, and a kitchen that looked straight out of a cooking show. The photos online showcased previous events that radiated warmth and celebration. The reviews glowed with praise about both the space and the host. At $800 for the night, it was stretching my budget to its breaking point, but I convinced myself it would be worth every penny. The booking process was surprisingly seamless. The host, let's call her the venue lady, responded promptly to my messages, answering my questions with a friendly professionalism that put me at ease. We settled on a date, I paid the deposit, and I felt that unique satisfaction of crossing something major off my to-do list. When I arrived for the initial walkthrough, the space didn't quite match the polished perfection of the photos. The floors needed sweeping, and there were water spots on the ceiling that the camera angles had cleverly avoided. Still, I could see the potential. The venue lady explained away my concerns with practiced ease. The previous renters had just left. A pipe had leaked last month, but was fully repaired now. For every question, she had an answer that soothed my growing unease. "We take pride in our space," she assured me, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "Our cleaning service will have everything spotless before your event." I ignored the warning bells. The date was approaching, invitations were out, and I was running out of options. So I signed the contract, initialing each page without reading the fine print as carefully as I should have. The damage deposit clause caught my attention. $500 seemed steep, but she assured me it was standard and would be refunded promptly if the space was returned in good condition. "We rarely have issues," she said. "Our renters are usually very respectful." If only I had recognized the calculated gleam in her eye. The day of the party arrived with the kind of perfect weather that feels like a good omen. I showed up 3 hours early to decorate, shocked to find the space largely untouched since my walkthrough. The floor still needed sweeping, and now there was a faint smell of mildew coming from somewhere I couldn't identify. I called the venue lady immediately. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, sounding genuinely apologetic. "The cleaners must have missed their appointment. I'll refund $100 for the inconvenience." The offer of money calmed my frustration somewhat, and I spent the next hour cleaning what should have already been clean. My friends arrived early to help with decorations, and soon the space was transformed. String lights twinkled against the brick walls, balloons floated from strategic corners, and a table of carefully arranged appetizers waited for the guest of honor. When my best friend walked through the door, her genuine surprise made every moment of stress worth it. 30 of our closest friends spent the next 6 hours celebrating, eating, dancing, and commemorating her achievement. The kitchen barely saw use. We had catered most of the food and only used it to store drinks and warm a few appetizers. As the night wound down, my inner hostess kicked into high gear. I've always been meticulous about leaving places better than I found them, a trait my mother drilled into me through years of post-gathering cleanup sessions. We collected every scrap of trash, wiped down every surface, swept and mopped the floors, and even took photos of the spotless space before locking up. I sent a polite message to the venue lady as we were leaving. "Thank you for the lovely space." We finished cleaning up and left the keys in the lockbox as instructed. The space is in excellent condition, and we made sure everything was back in its original place. She responded with a thumbs-up emoji and a great thanks. That should have been the end of the story. Instead, it was just the beginning. 3 days passed before the message arrived. My phone buzzed while I was in a work meeting, and I glanced down to see the booking platform's notification. Expecting the return of my damage deposit, I was eager to check, so I excused myself to the hallway. The message hit me like a physical blow. "We regret to inform you that your damage deposit will not be returned. Additionally, you will be charged an extra $700 for extensive deep cleaning services required after your event. The property was left in unusable condition and required professional remediation." I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding in my ears. Unusable condition? We had left that place cleaner than we found it. My first instinct was that there must have been a mistake. Perhaps she had confused our booking with another. I immediately responded, explaining that there must be some error, attaching the photos we had taken before leaving. Her reply came swiftly. These photos are not representative of the condition we found the property in. Our cleaning service documented extensive damage and unsanitary conditions. Attached were 3 blurry photos, one of an overflowing trash can that I didn't recognize, another of a stained countertop that definitely wasn't from the kitchen we had barely used, and a third showing what appeared to be a spill on the floor. None of these matched our event or the space as we left it. The realization dawned slowly, then all at once, I was being scammed. This wasn't a mistake, it was calculated. She was counting on me being too busy or intimidated to fight back. The $1,200 total, my original $500 deposit plus the additional $700 charge, was just enough to hurt deeply without being worth legal action. I felt violated in a way I couldn't articulate. It wasn't just the money, it was the accusation itself, the implication that I was destructive, irresponsible, and dishonest. It struck at something core to my identity, my consideration for others and their property. I spent that night meticulously documenting everything. I gathered all communications, reviewed the contract with forensic attention, collected statements from friends who had helped clean, organized the before and after photos chronologically, and drafted a formal dispute to submit to the booking platform. My appeal was comprehensive, professional, and evidence-based. I carefully avoided emotional language, focusing instead on the facts. The pre-existing condition of the venue, our minimal use of facilities, our thorough cleaning documented with time-stamped photos, and the suspicious nature of her evidence. I submitted the appeal with a confidence born of righteousness. The truth was on my side, documented and clear. The platform would see through this transparent scam and refund my money. Justice would prevail. Except it didn't. 5 days later, the response arrived. After careful review of the evidence provided by both parties, we have determined that the host's claim is valid. The additional charges will stand. I read the message multiple times, convinced I had misunderstood. How could they side with her? My evidence was irrefutable. I called customer service immediately and spent 45 minutes being transferred between representatives, each one reading from the same script about respecting the host's assessment of damages and upholding the terms of service. The final representative was at least honest. I understand your frustration, but once our resolution team makes a decision, it's rarely. You agreed to the host's terms when booking. I hung up and sat in stunned silence. The $1,200 represented a significant financial blow. Money I had been saving for months. More than the financial loss, though, was the crushing weight of injustice. The system had failed me. The scammer had won. That night, I lay awake replaying every interaction with the venue lady, recognizing the subtle red flags I had ignored. Her practiced responses. The convenient excuses. The way she emphasized that everything would be fine if we left the space in good condition. It had been a setup from the beginning. In the darkness of my bedroom, something hardened inside me. If the system wouldn't provide justice, perhaps I would have to find another way. I've always been the rational one, the mediator, the person who believes in working within systems rather than against them. But something about this injustice awakened a part of me I hadn't known existed, patient, methodical, and utterly determined. My investigation began innocently enough. I wanted to know if others had experienced similar issues with this venue. But what started as simple research evolved into something more comprehensive. Each evening after work, I would spend hours tracking the venue lady's digital footprint. I discovered her business wasn't just on the platform where I'd found her. It existed across multiple booking sites, each with a slightly different name but identical photos. She maintained active profiles on Yelp, Google Business, Facebook, and several event platforms. Most fascinating was the pattern of reviews, a sea of 5-star ratings with suspiciously similar language, punctuated by the occasional 1-star review that described scenarios eerily similar to mine. These negative reviews never lasted long. Within days, they would disappear, either removed by the platform after her complaints or, I suspected, buried under an avalanche of fake positive reviews that pushed them out of visibility. The more I discovered, the clearer the pattern became. This wasn't just opportunistic deception. It was her business model. She was systematically extracting hundreds or thousands of dollars from each booking through fraudulent damage claims, counting on most victims choosing to walk away rather than fight a system designed to protect hosts. I found myself taking notes, creating spreadsheets, documenting patterns. I set up alerts for new reviews of her business. I even found 2 previous victims on social media and carefully reached out, confirming my suspicions when they shared stories virtually identical to mine. "We just paid it," one told me. "It wasn't worth the fight." "I tried to dispute it," said another, "but they sided with her." I left a bad review, but it disappeared after a week. Their resignation fueled my resolve. This wasn't just about my $1,200 anymore. It was about every person she had scammed and everyone she would target in the future. Someone needed to stop her, and apparently, that someone would be me. My plan wasn't particularly sophisticated, but it was thorough. I would use the very platforms that protected her to expose her. I would leave detailed, evidence-based reviews everywhere her business appeared. Not angry rants that could be dismissed as emotional overreactions, but calm, factual accounts of my experience, supported by the photos and documentation I had gathered. I began with Google, then moved to Yelp. I created accounts on every platform where her business was listed. Each review was slightly different to avoid being flagged as spam, but the core elements remained consistent: the false accusations, the fabricated evidence, the refusal to provide legitimate proof, and the platform's failure to protect consumers. I attached the before and after photos of the space showing how clean we had left it. I was careful to redact any identifying information about myself or my friends. Each review ended with a warning: check your contract carefully and document everything if you choose to book this venue. The first few days, nothing happened. My reviews sat alongside her curated 5-star ratings, a small dissenting voice easily overlooked. I wondered if I had underestimated her ability to control her online presence. Perhaps she had relationships with these platforms that would allow her to remove negative feedback as she had before. Then, on day 4, something unexpected happened. Someone commented on my Yelp review, "The exact same thing happened to me last month. I've been afraid to say anything because I thought no one would believe me." This person's comment was followed by their own detailed account, which matched mine in several key aspects. Then, another appeared on Google, and another on Facebook. It was as if my review had created a safe space for others to share their experiences, breaking the isolation that had protected her scheme. By the end of the week, my posts had triggered an avalanche of negative reviews across multiple platforms. People who had remained silent, believing they were isolated incidents or fearing retaliation, suddenly found community in shared injustice. Each new story validated the others, creating a compelling pattern that became impossible to ignore or dismiss. I watched her overall rating on Google drop from 4.8 to 4.5, then to 4.1. On Yelp, she plummeted to 3.8 within 10 days. The booking platform where I had found her showed her as highly rated when I booked. Now she was merely rated, the gold star next to her listing conspicuously absent. She fought back, of course. New 5-star reviews appeared, transparently fake with their generic praise and lack of specific details. She flagged negative reviews for removal, succeeding with some but not all. She even created a special offer for discounted bookings, likely hoping to bury the negative feedback under new positive experiences. But the momentum had shifted. The truth, it seemed, had a power of its own once unleashed. I hadn't anticipated the emotional complexity of watching someone's business reputation crumble in real time. There was satisfaction, yes, vindication that came with each new negative review confirming what I already knew. But there was also a strange emptiness to the victory, a hollow space where my anger had lived. 3 weeks into what I had begun thinking of as my justice project, her rating on Google had fallen to 2.9. Her Yelp page was dominated by 1-star reviews. The booking platform had placed her listing under review, and her calendar, once nearly full, showed increasing availability. Then came her message. It arrived through the original booking platform, a paragraph that I read multiple times, trying to decipher its true intent. I noticed there had been several negative reviews posted recently that contained false information about our business practices. "I believe you may be connected to this coordinated attack on our reputation. I want to offer you a complete refund of all charges as a gesture of goodwill and to resolve any misunderstanding between us. In return, I would appreciate if you could clarify any misconceptions about your experience with our venue. No admission of wrongdoing." No apology. Just a thinly veiled attempt to buy my silence and save her business. The gesture of goodwill was particularly galling, as if returning money she had fraudulently taken was somehow generous. I didn't respond. The refund appeared in my account 2 days later anyway, a desperate move from someone watching their scheme collapse. By then, her business was featured in a local consumer protection Facebook group, with dozens of comments from past victims and warnings from people who had canceled bookings after seeing the reviews. I should have felt triumphant. I had reclaimed my money and exposed a fraud who had victimized countless others. Instead, I felt a complicated mix of emotions that I struggled to name. There was satisfaction, certainly. Justice had been served in its way. But there was also an unexpected weight, the awareness that my actions, however justified, had real consequences for another human being. I didn't know this woman's life, her circumstances, her reasons. Perhaps she had started with honest intentions before greed transformed her business model. Perhaps she had financial pressures I couldn't imagine. I found myself wondering about the people who worked for her, the actual cleaning staff she blamed in her excuses. Did they exist? Were they now without jobs? Had I considered all the collateral damage of my righteous campaign? Most unsettling was the realization that I had enjoyed parts of the process, the investigation, the strategy, the satisfaction of watching the plan unfold. What did that say about me? Had pursuing justice changed something fundamental in who I was? 6 months have passed since that first review. The venue lady's business still exists, but in a diminished form. Her website now prominently features a new management banner and a completely revised booking policy that specifically addresses damage deposits and cleaning fees. Her ratings have stabilized around 3.2 stars. Not great, not terrible, with recent reviews cautiously positive. I continue to receive occasional messages from people who found my reviews helpful, thanking me for saving them from a potential scam, or encouraging me to report her to local business authorities. I've done the latter, filing complaints with the appropriate agencies, though I harbor no illusions about bureaucratic efficiency. The $1,200 was eventually returned in full, but the experience changed me in ways I'm still processing. I've become more cautious, more suspicious of seemingly good deals, more inclined to document everything in my transactions. I read contracts fully now, highlighting concerning clauses and requesting amendments before signing. Friends call me paranoid. I consider myself educated. More profoundly, the experience forced me to confront questions about justice, revenge, and the thin line between them. When is exposing someone's wrongdoing a public service, and when does it become a personal vendetta? At what point does the pursuit of justice become its own form of harm? I still don't have clear answers. What I do know is this: systems fail. Platforms designed to facilitate trust can become weapons in the wrong hands. Sometimes the only recourse against injustice is persistence and the collective power of shared truth. I check her venue listing less frequently now, once a week instead of daily. Her calendar shows more bookings than it did at the height of the review campaign, but nowhere near her previous popularity. She's currently offering 50% off all weekday events, a desperate attempt to rebuild what she destroyed through her own greed. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she ever thinks about me, the customer who fought back, the person who dismantled her carefully constructed scheme. Does she regret targeting me specifically, or does she only regret getting caught? Has she learned anything, or merely adapted her tactics? I'll never know. Our only connection was a transaction gone wrong, and the digital aftermath of broken trust. Yet, there's an intimacy in conflict that creates a strange bond between adversaries, a shadow relationship built on opposition rather than affinity. What I hope is that she's changed, not just her business practices, but her fundamental approach to others. I hope the experience taught her what it taught me, that our actions create ripples we cannot control, affecting lives we may never see. That shortcuts to success built on deception ultimately collapse. That in the connected world we inhabit, truth has a persistence that can't be permanently suppressed. As for me, I'm planning another event next month. My mother's retirement celebration. I've found a venue with transparent policies and consistent detailed reviews spanning years. The deposit is reasonable, the contract fair. Still, I'll arrive with my camera ready, documenting the before carefully, preparing for a just in case that I hope never comes. Some lessons once learned cannot be unlearned. Some vigilance, once awakened, never fully sleeps again. But I'm at peace with that, because sometimes the price of justice isn't just the effort required to achieve it. It's the person you become in its pursuit.